introduce to the stage, please, Bart Vuijk, who is the Senior Innovation Partnerships Manager with TNO, specializing in smart mobility and smart cities. TNO has a successful long-running collaboration with the City of Amsterdam, and I'm delighted to say that Bart's going to tell us more about that now. Bart.
Thank you, and apologies. Good morning to everyone. Yes, I'd like to share a little bit of our experience in reality, in practice, with the deployment of digital twins. And as a resident of the city of Amsterdam, I'm happy to tell about my city and share it with you, especially since I heard that there's some interesting historical ties between the city of Göteborg and Amsterdam. But those may be analog twin cities, and today we're talking about digital twin cities. So I really wanted to share how digital cities and how our collaboration with the city of Amsterdam really supports Amsterdam in being resilient and being livable. But first, let me share a little bit of how we look at cities and how cities are actually coping with everyday's challenges. We're looking and trying to support them in these big topics that are coming towards them. Whether it is urbanization, people are still coming to the cities in droves worldwide, not just here, but this is happening everywhere. The population is aging, people are getting older, which has an impact on what's happening in the city. Of course, climate is playing a big role, decarbonization, that actually has an implication for what is happening in the cities when it comes to square meters, when it comes to the implementation of electric mobility. And talking about mobility, a lot is changing in the world of mobility as well. And the way people are moving from A to B in the cities actually has a big impact on how the cities are set up. And, well, you see the challenges mentioned here, they're all coming together in our cities. So our cities really have to deal with that. And I like the metaphor of a city as a complex organism where things are interconnected, where things are really joined, and where you cannot look at challenges in isolation. So this is part of the, let's say, the starting point. And why is this an issue for cities? Well, the increased complexity that is happening because of all these topics that I just described means that making decisions in our city is getting more complex by itself. And typically, cities, like many large organizations, are set up in silos. There's a department for mobility, there's a department for social support, there's a department for environment, and there's many, many departments. And typically, those departments are working, well, in their own specialties, but it is not very common that they are really well integrated. And of course, when you look at these large challenges in the cities, it means that if you want to come to a decision, if you really want to make decisions that make sense, it will take time, and it will increasingly take time, which actually puts a strain on the quality of the decisions, looking at it from a holistic point of view versus a very individualized or very solo point of view, or silo point of view. Actually, you will see that there will be large differences. So, and that quality of those decisions will actually impact how happy people will be that live in the city, or conversely, what will happen if things go wrong or perceived to go wrong. So our vision is to make this complexity for cities manageable, or at least better manageable, with the use of digital twins. And that complexity is addressed by creating an integral picture of the city. So we think, coming again from the large domains that are happening in the city, that integration, a holistic view, is key to really addressing the issues in the city. That picture covers multiple connected domains that are assessed in coherence. together as a connected ecosystem. And the decision times, due to the complexity, should actually be decreased. A city should be able to really take decisions or make decisions in real time. And that hopefully should lead to a better quality of the decisions and a better quality of life in those cities. It's interesting that wherever you come and the topic is digital twins, that first every speaker will spend at least a few minutes about what he means with digital twin. And I think the same holds for today. In my view, it appears like we are kind of on the same page in this room, at least as far as I heard the speakers. But if you look out there and look at many companies or many organizations that are talking about digital twins, typically this is what they mean. We have a large bunch of data, and we kind of visualize that data quite nicely. We can do a lot of filtering and additional things on top of that. But what is really missing, and I think we agree on that for today amongst ourselves, is the analytics part. We think that a digital twin is not only a digital representation of a city, but that it contains both static and dynamic model data, connected through a framework that actually allows these three key elements of a digital twin to work together seamlessly. So a digital twin should integrate all these elements into one functioning system. This is actually the background of what we developed at TNO. So as an applied research organization, of course, the science is key. It's the basis, it's the fundament of what we do. But we very much look into how we apply that science in reality and make that science, make that innovation work for real organizations like cities. So this is actually how we have conceptualized the platform. And we call it urban strategy. Can be applied to non-urban organizations as well, but as said, the key is applying it in cities. And it is a platform that actually allows cities to play interactively with what is happening in the city, specifically when it comes to the public domain, when it comes to public space, when it comes to mobility, those topics that, let's say, form the fabric of the physical part of the city. And by combining the static and predictive data, we want to really support cities with a novel way of decision making. So allowing for a large number of holistic scenarios to be played in a very short period of time. So essentially the iterations that are necessary to come to a meaningful decision in a city can be really taken in a very condensed way, meaning that you can include many of your stakeholders that are important in the city in the way you make your decisions. And here you see an example of Singapore, which is actually a few years ago already. You may not know these people, but these are actually 6 different ministries in the city of Singapore being together, actually many of them for the first time, around a table, and here this is a touch table where the digital twin of Singapore was running, all of them looking at their own city with their own perspectives, but using this common language, if you want, of the digital twin. So the way we have developed this is much coming from the, let's say, the land use, the mobility point of view. So mobility is a key element, of course, in many cities when it comes to public space usage. And that is why we have included many mobility-related simulation models, including mobility demand, mobility networks, network allocation, mobility hubs, but also new mobility modes like Hyperloop or UAM or light electric vehicles. Mobility has a big influence on the cities. However, we see, of course, that increasingly important are topics like electrification, like livability, air quality and noise, resilience, well-being as well. A big topic, I think, is we tend to talk a lot about data, about models, but in the end, digital twins are meant to be functioning for cities and for people living in cities. So a lot of cities are actually coping with the question, how do we understand better how our decisions impact people? If we create, let's say, a zero-emission zone somewhere, what does that mean for instance, lower-income people who are extremely dependent on their cars and who might not be able to reach their jobs? So are we really making good decisions if we create zero-emission zones while challenging people to reach their jobs? Those are the kind of complexities that we think should be addressed and that we should help cities with to find solutions. And of course, we're working on novel subjects like microsimulation on a very large scale to really be able to look into the details of what is happening, but also economic models, economic equilibrium models. What happens if you build something in the long term? If you build a new highway, what does that mean for housing prices? What does it mean for how people move or where people want to live? So in our approach, I think what we do is we try to be very user-oriented. That's the applied side of the science thing we do. And at the same time, we want to be solidly science-based. I mean, the user-oriented part is it really has to make a difference in complex decision-making in cities. It should be interactive, and it should be integral, multi-domain. And at the same time, the science is important. We use the latest high-performance computing technology and pair that with domain knowledge. So it is important to be able to run these very complex simulations in real time or quasi-real time, and still, of course, each individual model and simulation needs to be scientifically sound. So this is actually what we have developed for these digital twins, essentially addressing the topics that Jan-Tien was already mentioning, like how do we make this work in reality? Because if you have to wait many days for the outcome of your simulation, well, that does complicate your decision making significantly. Okay, we've developed this platform. There's many, let's say, more details to it that I won't discuss right now because that was not the topic of this story. But we recently, or actually very recently, published an article about this in the Future Generation Computer Systems magazine that explains the underlying philosophies and technology choices and principles that are the part of this. But now let's move on, because we actually wanted to speak about Amsterdam and how that particular city was using this approach in reality. In Amsterdam, actually, we being TNO, have a collaboration since about 2017. And it started really as an innovation collaboration between the city and TNO, where TNO, of course, would do all the innovations and the developments. But what was key to that collaboration, the city would bring challenging use cases to us that we were not capable of solving with the existing models or needed additional development. And another thing that was important in the city, it was initiated by the Chief Technology Office. So the city of Amsterdam actually started that office in about 2014 with 3 people, saying that digitalization was an important development for the city, and they really needed to use that in order to improve the way the city was organized. And right now, actually, that department has about 100 people sitting there, all working on a myriad of digital innovations. This was one of the first that they adopted into that organization back in 2017. And the city had actually many questions, and here you see a picture of the city, but many questions that they could not solve. Like, very practical. The city has over 100 kilometers of canals, and those of you who visited Amsterdam probably have enjoyed the view of the canals, but not many people know that a very large portion of those canals are on the verge of collapsing. Actually, a few years back, one canal, or one quay, really collapsed. So the city needs to renovate close to 100 kilometers of quays and bridges, by the way, that are belonging to the quays, in the city, in a downtown area where there's millions of visitors every year. And people live there, and actually there's logistics that need to be there. So this is a very complicated question. They could not solve the puzzle. But the same holds for a very large city renovation project, where the port of Amsterdam was actually pushed out of the ring, or will be pushed out, and will be converted into a residential area. What does that mean for the city? What does it mean for its infrastructure? How are people influenced by that? What does it mean for livability? And you see a myriad of questions here that they were actually asking, but could not get answered with the current tools, with the current support mechanisms they had. So we build a digital twin for the city of Amsterdam on top of their existing tools. Of course, they had their own simulation models and all that. And I think it is important to mention that we really are reusing what is already there, but we're actually adding something to it, which helps a lot also in the adoption of something new, like using a digital twin. So we built a digital twin, and of course we included all the data that was available. So you see building data, you see ground coverage, you see the road networks, you'll see network zones, public transport lines, all of that. The usual stuff that I think we all know, and actually this is the part that is kind of very common. But I think the third element really came into play now, is how can we allow analytics to play a key role in that, in what-if scenarios for the cities, all these big questions that you saw up there. And by adding controls, that is interventions in the city, we actually started changing elements in the network of the city, like a maximum speed, like a new school, like a tunnel, like a changing parking fees, like any data element that we can change, which actually automatically triggers the simulation, triggers the model that is connected to that data. And by predefined relations between the models, we are actually capable of running this in real time across all these domains in reality. So what you see here is all these little dots are interventions, are controls as we call them, and they can be activated, they can be switched on and off on the fly. And by doing that and actually making the selection, you can actually create your own what-if scenario. But the fascinating part here is that you get your answers very quickly. Well, I just ran a scenario the other day, actually yesterday, and took a few screenshots to just share with you what this looks like. So out of those, 200 controls that the city generated, I picked 4, and one of them is the conversion of the port area with 10,000 homes in the northwestern part. Actually, they're looking at increasing their parking tariffs even further in the center of the city. Of course, Amsterdam is a bicycle city, so bicycles actually get their own streets right now, where cars are pushed out or at least get a lower priority. And a ring road closure was scheduled, and of course the city wanted to understand what that means. Well, if you look at all these, let's say, interventions in the system, they will trigger many different aspects. Not just the traffic part, but of course, traffic is connected to air quality. Actually, building houses is increasing demand. Demand will lead to traffic, and increased traffic will either lead to also a modal shift, but also to air quality and noise implications. So by invoking those 4 interventions. Actually, a chain of models is invoked, and that you see on the right-hand side. And all these models are running in real time. And the part I did not cover yet, which is in the article, but maybe it's good to mention it here, is we are running those models on a very advanced GPU infrastructure that actually allows us to run these models about 1,000 times faster than is currently possible. So part of that puzzle is really we're trying to condense the outcome of your simulations in real time, which actually changes the way decisions are made dramatically. So within a minute or a minute and a half, I do have a simulation for the entire city of Amsterdam running those 4 complex scenarios, and this is the outcome when it comes to air quality. This is a NOx picture, nitrous oxide, and this is actually the after situation. And you probably won't see the difference, so this is the difference map you see. So within 1.5 minutes, actually, this complex scenarios actually are generating the results that you see immediately. So actually you can see what happens to air quality because of those 4 interventions. And of course you can zoom in, you can try to find better solutions. And this is, I think, the part that is very relevant. Speed is important, accuracy is important, but in the end it's about decision making for people in the city. By being able to run your simulations so fast across all these domains, you really get the holistic picture in a very short period of time. So now we're getting to a point where a city can really run dozens of scenarios in a very short period of time and really converge to a solution that makes sense according to the city policies. Well, this would be the picture for noise, the result of the noise simulations. And of course, Amsterdam would not be Amsterdam if we would not look at how bikes are moving across the city as well. And it's pretty obvious that the bike street itself acts more or less like a highway, attracting tons of bicyclists. But also across the entire city, you see that parking actually pushes people to bikes as well. You see, if you look very closely, you can see red lines there, and the same over there. If you build new homes, by definition, this will lead to additional bike traffic. It all makes sense, but we really can visualize this very clearly. And of course, cars will get in trouble. Because there's more cars, the network will not expand, so there will be more congestion. So in a very short period of time, we can actually look at all these different aspects of the city within a matter of minutes, and look at noise, look at particulate matter, look at even safety indicators for the roads, or look at the more social side of things, the accessibility of jobs, the accessibility of homes, the impact on people. We can really try to make that visible as well. And of course, we can also look at all the details. Specific indicators can be looked upon. So all of that in, let's say, in coherence, connected in a very short period of time. So today, I mean, my speech was about the practical value of innovation. This is a few of the things that we see and hear from the city. In a city, it was not uncommon to have, let's say, a traffic situation calculated by a company, by an external company, because the city did not have the expertise, and they would wait for a couple of months and get a written report. And then when they said, well, we don't like the outcome, can you change this or that? They had to wait another week or a few weeks or months. Right now, they get the results within minutes, and they can do it themselves. The decision process itself is sped up dramatically. Because the complexities across these many domains are showed and are calculated or simulated integrally, actually you can really bring together all the different aspects and policy aspects that make sense and really come to a balanced decision in a short period of time. Also, what was interesting is the options for decisions actually increased dramatically. The city of Amsterdam actually told us that because the use of the digital twin, they were aware of options that they never thought would be there before. Actually, that they would never have even considered of doing. The digital twin actually helped them, and the way, of course, their people work with the digital twin helped them in really exploring multiple options. And that actually also improved the quality of decision making, because politicians like to be presented with multiple options so they can really make a choice, right? It's not a yes or no, it's really a wealth of options that is coming to them. And of course, thinking, let's say, one step further, is by looking at the city in an integral way, in a holistic way, you actually get away from these very siloed, suboptimal decisions. Your decision space actually enlarges, but it also allows you to really make choices, make policy choices that make sense in every domain that is taken into account. So I want to conclude my story with a few lessons, just a few lessons learned that we learned in the city of Amsterdam, and that may be interesting also when thinking about digital twins and making them work in the real world, let's say. I think, and what we see is that digital twins are here to stay. If you see the value of what they can bring to cities and what it has brought to Amsterdam, it is my conviction that this is only the beginning that we're seeing here. And one of the reasons why I say this is we started, as I shared with you, as an innovation collaboration with the city of Amsterdam, so the CTO. And of course, it started like any other innovation project, a big new hairy thing. We don't know what it is, but we'll see. It turned out that the innovations that we jointly did, they bringing in the use cases, we bringing in the technology and the innovation, that the practical value was so large that the innovation landed in the operational organization of the city, while the innovation office actually would continue with new questions that were challenging us. But on a day-to-day basis, the city of Amsterdam is now using these simulations to really tactically and strategically plan the very large decisions in their infrastructure. And as you've seen on one of the pictures, there's hundreds of those that are actually addressed with our digital twin. And what we also see is that, and this is what decision makers told us, it takes the gut feeling out of decision making. It really helps them in understanding the impact of the decisions they make, especially since we're looking at not just one aspect, but across these many domains. The other thing that really actually surprised us in a way is the interactive part of it is really making a difference. Seeing immediately within a minute or 1.5 minutes, that is within, sharing a few thoughts amongst yourselves, you have the results of your interventions. That used to be days. The city of Amsterdam told us that for a single simulation of a traffic scenario, it would cost them about 24 hours to run one simulation. And that was only for traffic. So they didn't even speak about noise or air quality or these equity indicators. Just for traffic, it was 24 hours. If you can reduce that to 1.5 minutes, that dynamic actually changes the whole way a city looks at decision making, at exploring options. That's a game changer. Another thing that we found out, pretty obviously maybe, but still, is to find ambassadors that are really willing to stick out their necks to make it work. Again, many innovations are only innovations for the few people that decided to buy it or to start it. I think what the city of Amsterdam really did very interestingly is there was a vision that was shared with the organization, but also pushed through. And from the individual departments, there were people that were willing to try. Even though initially there was some resistance, like we have the greatest traffic model in the Western Hemisphere, so why do we need something else? We kind of explained them that we're not replacing anything, we're actually adding to it. And this actually helped a lot in making, ambassadors out of people that were initially maybe even reluctant to work with it. And then one of the things that I really like as well in the way a digital twin can function is you create a common language. You have this physical thing that actually a lot of people can stand around, can interact with, and you're all looking at the same thing, you're speaking the same language, and also you start understanding why different departments with different views actually look differently at the world that you're looking at as well. So by organizing it this way, actually you bring together these different points of views in a very practical, concrete way, and it really works out well in the way of the decisions are made. And maybe last but not least, this is a relevant one as well. Of course, digital twins support people. They do not do anything by themselves. They should be decision support systems. Politicians make choices, civil servants make choices, specialists make choices. Digital twins don't make choices. They help you to really understand the situation in the city. And I think, and this is the last part of today as well, we ain't seen nothing yet. This is, in my conviction, this is just the start of how cities are really going to change, helped by these phenomenal digital innovations. And with the upcoming revolution in AI, I think a lot will still change over the coming years. And it will be also our challenge to really make AI work for cities in a way that is transparent, responsible, that cities that are held accountable are able to explain that to their constituents. Okay, thanks so much. I really wanted to share this with you and hope that you got a little bit of an impression of what a digital twin can mean in reality. Thank you.
Thank you, Bart. Please grab a chair.